I fell in the bathroom, calling for my son, who never came. But the day he finally showed up for money, I told him to check my purse. And what he found didn't just shock him, it broke something inside him forever. If you want more real, heart-touching stories like this, make sure to subscribe. Every story here reaches straight to your heart. I didn't hear a crack, just a heavy, dull thud as my shoulder slammed against the bathroom floor. For a second, it didn't even register as pain. It was more like shock, a strange echo inside the small tiled room. Then the real pain hit sharp and hot, shooting through my hip like someone had driven a nail straight into the bone. I tried to move my left leg, but it stayed still, as if it no longer belonged to me. My foot didn't wiggle, my toes didn't twitch. Nothing. The bathroom light buzzed faintly above me, that familiar fluorescent hum I'd ignored for years. Outside the frosted window, the sky was still dark early morning, before anyone else on the street had even turned on a kettle. I reached for the sink to pull myself up, but it was too far. My elbow slipped, my cheek pressed to the cold floor, sending a sting all the way to my teeth. The toilet kept running behind me, a small, irritating reminder that everything in the house was functioning except me. My phone was still sitting on the bathroom, counter-mocking me with its perfect distance. So I rolled onto my side and began the slow, humiliating drag toward the hallway. 1 inch, then another. The bath mat bunched under my arm, making every movement harder. My breathing grew loud and uneven, like my body was panicking faster than my mind. By the time I reached the hallway table, my whole body trembled. The air felt colder out there, and the floor practically burned with chill. I slapped my hand up onto the small table, fingers searching for the old landline I hadn't touched in ages. Thank God it still worked. I called Weston first, straight to voicemail. Then Brenna. Nothing. Then Evan, my 10 minutes away. Anything you need, Mom's son. The phone just rang and rang. I swallowed tears because crying would only make breathing harder. My teeth chattered. I kept dialing numbers, hoping anyone would answer. Finally, with nothing left to try, I called June, my neighbor. We weren't close. We mostly talked about trash pickup and weather. I didn't expect her to answer. She did. What's wrong? I fell. I can't get up, I whispered. Stay where you are. I'm coming right now. 6 minutes later, she burst through my front door in pajama bottoms and a half-buttoned coat. She knelt beside me, hands warm and steady on my shoulder. You're freezing, she said softly. Don't move. I've got you. And for the first time that morning, I wasn't alone. But what June would learn in the ambulance and what my children would reveal in the days ahead would hurt far worse than the fall itself. June rode with me in the ambulance, gripping my hand tighter than I expected. The paramedic asked for my emergency contact, and I gave him Weston's number. He wrote it down, nodded, and moved on. No one called him, but I didn't ask them to. At the hospital, they slid me under the X-ray machine. The cold metal kissed my back, and the ceiling lights blurred above me. When the doctor finally returned, the expression on his face already told me what I needed to know. Fractured left hip, he said. No surgery, but a long recovery. Slow movements, physical therapy, Minimum strain. Minimum strain. As if I hadn't strained myself enough already. In the recovery room, a nurse gently tucked the blanket around me. "Is your family on their way?" she asked with a warm smile. I shook my head. "No, it's just me." She hesitated, her smile dimming just a bit. "Would you like me to call someone?" "I already did," I murmured. The next morning, my phone buzzed once. A single message from Weston Jufel. "Let me know when you're home." No question mark. No call. "No, are you okay, Mom?" I turned the phone face down on the bedside table. June came by around lunchtime with a robe and a small bag of things she'd picked up from my house. She also brought almonds and a pastry in case hospital food tastes like glue. I tried to hug her, but the pain was too sharp, so I just squeezed her hand. By the third day, they transferred me to Briar Creek Rehab Center. Clean walls, lavender soap smell, polite nurses. June unpacked my things again, my glasses, my cardigan, my slippers, placing everything with the care of someone who had nothing to gain. While she folded my sweater, she paused. "Do you want me to text your kids?" she asked gently. "No," I said. "They'll reach out when it matters to them." Her eyes soft, but she didn't argue. When Weston finally showed up, he didn't bring flowers, or concern, or warmth. I heard him before I saw him, his frustrated voice at the nurse's station, asking which room was mine. Moments later, he walked in with Dana, both of them looking around like they were touring an outdated apartment. "Hey, Mom," he said flatly. No hug. No smile. I sat up straighter. "You found the place?" "Yeah. We were nearby," he replied, scanning the room, hands in pockets. "Listen, we're thinking about moving into a bigger house, better schools. And, well, Brenna mentioned Dad's old insurance money. Do you still have it?" The air went cold. My hip throbbed, but my chest hurt more. Dana added softly, "Just a small loan, nothing big. Or maybe, have you thought about selling your house? It's a lot for one person at your age." I turned toward the window so they wouldn't see the tears climb up my throat. They stayed 5 minutes. No more. But as the door clicked shut behind them, something else closed inside me, to something I had kept open for far too long. What happened next didn't just change my recovery. It changed my entire future. That night in the rehab center, sleep wouldn't come. My hip ached in pulses, but the deeper pain was the echo of Weston's voice, asking about money, before asking about me. The hallway lights dimmed as the building settled into quiet. Machines hummed, slow, steady beats. My room felt like a waiting room for a life I wasn't sure belonged to me anymore. Around midnight, I pressed the call button. The night nurse, Clara, walked in with a soft smile. "Can I help you with something, Miss Lenora?" "My purse," I whispered. "The brown one? Please." She brought it over, helped adjust my pillows, and left me to whatever I needed to do. Inside the purse, beneath tissues and my glasses case, was a folder I hadn't touched in months. The worn edges felt heavier than paper should. I opened it and spread everything across the thin hospital blanket. The copy of my will. The old trust. The power of attorney Weston pressured me into signing years ago. forms I'd postponed, decisions I never thought I would make alone. Primera reade slowly, but my mind was steady clearer than it had been in years. The will listed all 3 kids equally, the house divided between them, the savings split, Weston still listed as executor, all written in a time when I believed my children would show up for me when it mattered. At the bottom of the stack was an amendment form. Blank. Waiting. I uncapped the pen, my finger stiff but determined, and signed my name. It looked smaller, lighter, but final. I slid the papers back inside the folder, then reached for the bedside phone. My thumb hovered for a second before dialing the attorney I trusted most. He picked up on the 3rd ring, groggy. "This is Malcolm." "It's Lenora," I said. "I'm ready. It's time to make changes, official ones." He didn't ask why. Maybe he already knew. "I'll be there first thing in the morning." When I hung up, I folded my hands over my blanket. For the first time since the fall, the room felt warm, not because anything had changed yet, but because I had finally decided it would. 2 days later, June drove me home. She carried my small suitcase and helped open windows to let in fresh air. I sat quietly in my favorite chair as she straightened things around the house. "You'll be okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I will." When she left, I went to my bedroom, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the deed to the house. The paper felt almost alive in my hands. My husband and I had signed it together when life felt certain. Now, everything was uncertain except one thing. I wasn't giving anything to people who couldn't even answer the phone. 2 mornings later, cane in hand but walking on my own, I stepped into Malcolm's office. We reviewed everything, signed everything, locked the trust, protected the assets, removed the names that no longer deserved to be on them. By the time I walked out, I had rewritten not just paperwork, but my future. What I didn't expect was how quickly that new future would be tested. Because the moment I got home, someone knocked on my door and brought trouble with them. It happened 3 days after I signed the new trust. I was finally settling back into my own home, moving slowly. Yes, but moving on my own. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. I had just set the kettle on the stove when headlights flashed through the living room curtains. At first, I thought it was June. Her visits had become the one soft spot of my week. But then the engine didn't cut off. The lights stayed on for a moment, then off again. A car door slammed. Then another. No knock, just the faintest click of a key turning in my front door. A key I'd forgotten. They still had. "Mom," Weston called out, his tone carrying the entitlement of someone walking into a place he still assumed belonged to him. I tightened my grip on my cane and stepped into the living room. Brenna stood beside him with that carefully polished smile she used whenever she wanted something, and through the window I saw Evan sitting in the car, engine running, staring at his phone. He didn't even pretend to come inside. "We've been thinking," Brenna began, smoothing the sleeve of her blouse, "about your safety, about what's best for you long term." Weston stepped forward. "Yeah, we think it's time to talk about assisted living." I didn't sit. I didn't even blink. I simply gestured to the couch. "You can talk?" But I'm fine standing. They didn't sit. You can't stay alone in a house this big, Brenna said gently, as if speaking to a stubborn child. It's too much for one person. And, Weston added, trying to sound casual, if you did decide to move somewhere safer, selling the house could help you on us plan for the future. Ah, there it was. The future. Their favorite word. When money was involved, I reached for 2 envelopes on the coffee table, one for each of them. Handed them over. What's this? Weston asked, ripping his open with the impatience of someone expecting a check. His eyes scanned the page. His expression shifted. You changed everything. His voice cracked. Without even telling us. I met his stare evenly. You made your choice the morning I fell. I made mine after. You're punishing us, he snapped. No, I said calmly. I'm protecting what I earned and giving it to someone who actually showed up. Brenna blinked quickly, her voice barely a whisper. This is your legacy. You're throwing it away. No, I repeated. I'm finally putting it in the right hands. They left as quickly as they came. No hugs, no apologies, not even a backward glance. Evan's car sped off before their feet hit the bottom step. The silence they left behind wasn't painful. It was peaceful. Over the next few weeks, the house grew warmer. June visited with groceries, fixed a crooked lamp, replaced a dying plant. One afternoon, she asked a question she'd been holding back. So, who did you choose? I looked at her, the way someone looks at the one person who kept them from breaking. Someone who answered the phone? I said. That night, I sealed the beneficiary form with her name on it, folded it, placed it by the door for morning mail, and as I washed my cup, the house felt lighter, like it finally belonged to someone who belonged in it. I thought that was the end of it, but life has a way of circling back, because a week later, I got a call that changed everything I thought I knew about family. A full week passed with nothing but quiet mornings and slow progress. My cane leaned against the kitchen counter more often than I needed it. The house felt lighter, almost relieved, as if it had finally stopped bracing for footsteps that never came. I spent most afternoons in the living room chair by the window, the one spot where sunlight touched the floor just right. Birds returned to the feeder. June dropped by twice a week with groceries, mail, and that easy warmth she carried with her. Life, for the first time in a long time, felt steady. Then the phone rang. Not my cell. The landline. That alone felt like a warning. I picked it up slowly. Hello, a shaky voice answered. Mom? Evan. Of all 3 of my children, he was the one I expected to stay silent the longest. His absence had been the quietest, but somehow the deepest, like a light that dimmed without ever going out. Yes, Evan. What is it? He exhaled sharply, almost like AD. Been holding his breath for days. I heard about the truss. Weston told me everything. I closed my eyes. Of course, Weston told him, not because he cared, but because he wanted allies. I see, I said. No, you don't. His voice cracked. I should do, answered the phone. That morning? I know that, but you don't understand. I wasn't asleep. My grip tightened on the receiver. Then why didn't you answer? There was a long stretch of silence on the other end. A swallow. Then I was having a panic attack. My breath caught not in sympathy, but in disbelief. Evan had always been the calm one, the level-headed one. His anxiety, if it existed at all, lived in quiet corners where no one could see. Panic attack, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes. His voice trembled again. I'd been hiding it from everyone. I didn't want you to think I was weak, and when the phone rang that morning, I froze. I knew it was you, and I couldn't answer. I am not asking you to forgive me, I just... Didn't he want you thinking I didn't he? I stood there in the kitchen, the refrigerator humming behind me, the weight of his words pressing like a slow ache across my ribs. Why tell me now? I asked quietly. Because, he said, I don't want to lose my mom over something I wish I could undo. For the first time in months, my throat tightened for a different reason. But emotion doesn't erase choices, and truth doesn't fix what was broken. Evan, I said softly, I'm sorry you went through that. Truly. But this, all of this, wasn't just about one missed call. I know, he whispered. But can I come see you? Just once? I need to talk to you face to face. I looked at the front door, solid, locked, still. Part of me wanted to say yes. Another part remembered the cold floor of the bathroom, the unanswered calls, the months of absence. And then Evan said something that changed the entire conversation. Mom, Weston and Brenna don't know I'm calling you, and you need to know something before they show up again. I straightened in my chair. What is it? A long, shaky breath traveled through the phone. It's about the house, and about Dad's insurance, and about something Weston did that you aren't going to like. My heart dropped into silence.